Hello everybody and welcome back to the Overlap Breakdown channel, and we're here this morning to cover what Igor Tudor is going to bring to Tottenham Hotspur. Okay, welcome back to the channel. Thank you very much for the support again. I always say if you do like the pieces, make sure you subscribe to the channel. It helps us out more than you will know. And we're a bit late on this one simply because of the fact that I wanted to come into this with a lot of research, and Igor Tudor was not someone before he got announced who was on my mind consistently talking about when manager vacancies become available. But this appointment does have a lot of positives, in my opinion, and also has some negatives, and we're going to go on to speak about them. But yeah, I think it's very key to mention that he's already come in and he's took training, and he's only really done very small amounts of media work, and he's done one interview with Tottenham, which is about 5 minutes long. And I think in that interview, he's saying all the right things to come off the back of Thomas Frank. He's saying the stuff about there's no time for excuses. We know how bad it's been. We need to up the momentum, the confidence in the group. And he's talking a lot about, you know, developing a style based on the squad's characteristics. And before we go into anything about Tottenham Hotspur and Igor Tudor when he comes into Spurs, as we mentioned in the Frank piece, obviously, there is a ridiculous amount of injuries left, right and centre for this team. But it does seem like this appointment and the shift in tactics and the way he's going to use his tactics to bring into Spurs does look like it's going to be a 3-4-3. I have watched in the last 4 or 5 days, I have watched his Verona team, his Lazio team, his Marseille team, his Juve team. So I've got a pretty good idea of what he's changed from club to club. We are going to go on to speak about that. But just to give you a brief introduction of his job catalogue almost and what he's been able to do. So Udinese was his first job in Italy. He joined there as head coach in April and stayed there till June 2018, and he came to save them from relegation. He also did that, which was a marvellous bit of work. He then went to Hellas Verona from September 2021 to May 22. He improved Verona's fortunes a little bit. I think they got him to about 9th place in Serie A, which is a really good finish for them at the time. And then obviously he left the club, went to Marseille in July 22 and then left in June 23. And that is, in my opinion, where his best football as a coach was played. And I'll go on to speak about a little bit more how he developed a 3-4-3 that was a seriously aggressive and demanding and front-footed team. And from there, he got them into a 3rd place finish in League and secured them Champions League qualification, but got knocked out of Europe and then left at the end of the season. He then went to Lazio, took over from Maurizio Sarri, and then guided Lazio to a Europa League spot on the final match day. And then obviously that was only from March to June 24. He then went to Italy, went to Juve again in Italy, March to October 2025. He got them Champions League on the last day once again with Juve, and then left the following season midway through because of results and fallings out with the board. Now, and he was also Juventus' first non-Italian manager since Didier Deschamps, which is pretty incredible when you look at, you know, the plethora of managers they've had and the amount of leniency they've got to the Italians. But the reason why I say that his Marseille team was the one to watch out for is that on your screen right now, we have got a league and graphics table of the 22-23 season. And here, Marseille were pretty brilliant. Like, they've got expected goals against 43, which is the 19th in the league. So obviously they are conceding the 2nd least amount. Shots on target faced, the 4th least amount. Shots faced overall, the 5th least amount. Goals, 5th on, shots, 3rd. But then we're looking at possession winning final 3rd, 1st, high turnovers, 3rd, passes into the box, 1st. And this team was a magnificent team. And I'm going to actually start off with this Marseille team because for me, when I was watching them, this was a team, I watched them in the 2 legs they played over against Spurs, against Conte's Spurs, and they held their own in large stints of the game. Now, I want to show you what they were doing. So, with a 3-4-3, oftentimes we do see a lot of teams just do the bog standard, pushing on your fullbacks like this, they become wingers, and then you've got a 3-2-5, and it doesn't take that much running to get in from its out of possession to in possession shape, so it just drops back like this into a 5-4-1 with these wide midfielders down the side like that. Now, Igor Tudor is a little bit more flexible positionally on the ball, and this has gone across all the clubs. Lazio, Juve, Verona, Marseille. I'll go on to speak about each club individually, but what they often did was create these double width moments. Now, to put this simply, double width is basically like A winger fullback is double width. So if this is a 2v1 against the opposition's fullback, this is double width. Now, what they did quite often was they had Jordan Veretout, Guendouzi, players like that, who would drop into the back line to allow the centre-halves to push on into these wider moments. So we can imagine that this is Jordan Veretout, for example. He would then be able to push on the left wing-back into more of a left wing position, and then they could push the left centre-half into more of a left-back position. And that creates this almost curved diagonal line to go around the outside of other teams' blocks. And I'm going to throw up a couple of screenshots on your screen right now just to talk through how that gains teams a lot of bit of attacking dynamism in some senses, unpredictable attacks, and why it's so crucial for Tottenham to use this, because they have obviously got Christian Romero suspended and won't be back for another 4 games, I believe. But we're looking at Van de Ven and Christian Romero, who are most likely going to play as the left centre-half and the right centre-half in that 3-back. And they are 2 very unique technical centre-halves on the ball for me. And they were going to be 2 of the players I want to speak about in terms of they are going to have a lot of enjoyment for me, in my opinion, under Igor Tudor. So, okay, now on your screen we have got a goal that Marseille did score under Igor Tudor, and I want to focus on the distances between the central defenders and the job role of the centre mid when Marseille are on the ball. So on this image right here, we can see number 27, who is just right of the ball carrier, is Jordan Veretout. Now he is deeper than all 3 central defenders for Marseille. So the player on the ball is the middle centre-half. The player holding the width on the left, just beneath the left winger, is the left centre-half. And the player closest to where the camera is with the orange boots is Mbemba, who is the right centre-half. So the distance and width between the centre-halves in these situations is absolutely massive. The distances are huge. And that is only created because they have a midfielder who can drop out of the line, out of the midfield line, split the centre-halves, and then get that little bit of width across. And this is good for a couple reasons. I'm going to show you a goal that they actually scored in this example on the screenshots. But this is really key, because if you can imagine that you're building up in a 5, but you've got these moments of double width like this, if the opposition is then going to push onto you in a narrow press, we often see diamond presses, 4-3-3 presses, 4-4-2 presses. This is very good to stretch that forward line and then to find the gaps through the middle, whilst also having these 3v1s on the sides that oppositions can't handle quite well. So again, back to the example, we've got the middle centre-half on the ball who runs with the ball and crashes the box. He plays a 1-2 off the left wing-back. The middle centre-half plays a 1-2 off the left wing-back. Gets into the box, and then a lovely bit of wall play, lays it off to Alexis Sanchez, who was playing for Marseille at this time, believe it or not, and scores a wonderful goal. And this is just the characteristics of what's to be expected of Tudor's centre-halves on the ball. Now, another example in the same game against Lorient in Marseille's 3-1 win against them. I'm now going to show you what this looks like on the other side of their build-up. So again, picture on your screen right now, and we can see that diagonal line forming from Guendouzi to Chancellor Mbemba to the right wing-back. And this is also, you can see on the other side, they are creating the same dynamic, almost like a V shape around the edge of the box. Now, Guendouzi once again has dropped into that right centre-half position. Chancellor Mbemba has pushed forward. Now, in this clip, Chancellor Mbemba is pointing to the right wing back to tuck inside. So oftentimes we do see them attack inside, outside. He's used different profiles there. Sometimes he's used wingers. He's used left-footed right wing backs, players like that. But we can see that when he's asked to be tucked inside, Mbemba is the one from right centre-half who makes this long sprint down the side of the box and actually puts in a cross from the corner flag. And this results in another goal for Marseille. So if we're talking about how well Igor Tudor uses the aggressive runs from the wide centre-halves down the sides, getting the crosses in, crashing the box like the other example we just shown, and then we look at what Tottenham have in Van de Ven and Christian Romero, if he does emphasise on them late runs from the centre-backs crashing down the outsides, then I think that'll be a really, really nice bit of play if we can see it under Igor Tudor at Spurs. But obviously, they are both not collectively fit at the same time and available for selection in the North London derby. So chances are this will be a tactic that we'll see in weeks to come. This definitely did change from team to team, depending on the players he's got available. He often said this in his Spurs interview. But I now want to go on into speaking about something else that he did also at Lazio. And this is actually on the thumbnail. So again, screenshot up on your screen right now. We can see Salernitana, the 3-1 up, it's the 60th minute, and I'm going to layer over a line that connects the three centre-halves. And once again, we can see that same principle of stretching the pitch extremely wide with the wide centre-halves and dropping a midfielder into the lines. We can actually see that the second deepest player on this is Daichi Kamada, who obviously now plays for Crystal Palace, and the person on the ball is Luis Alberto. Now, because of this width between the centre-halves, that has stretched and almost cancelled out Salernitana's block. So you can see how many reset players are behind the ball for Lazio here. Now, Luis Alberto, because he has that much space inside now to work with, because they've got so many options down the sides, he can then play a lovely few bit of given goals, 1-2s, and then they breach into Salernitana's box, and God knows how the keeper saves it from this situation. Now, this is when we're talking about the wide centre-halves are going to benefit a lot from this. Pedro Porro, Udogie, Souza, the new left wing back that they've signed from Brazil, he's got that pace, power, energy to play on the line, so I think he will work quite well. But mostly, I like the look of Spurs' central midfielders and centre-backs translating to this more aggressive three-back team. Because often we do see this situation where if I just push this back straight into the 3-4-3, because we often do see this situation where a midfielder drops into the line to allow the ball players to move on, I can imagine a player like João Palhinha, who's not that good when he's facing pressure on his back to receiving the hole like this, but what he is good at is obviously breaking up play for one, but if he rotates in, and Thomas Frank used Palhinha as a right centre-half in one of the two games, and I don't doubt Chudor might do the same to get this advantage, but if he can rotate in here and have his head up facing play, that makes his job on the ball easier, whilst also getting Spurs these moments where they can create these 3v2s on the wide side and follow up on them Chudor-like coaching principles that we've now seen at Marseille and Lazio. So definitely one to keep out for, how aggressive the centre-halves are. I've had a bit of a laugh and a joke about it on Twitter because some of the pictures are just absolutely ridiculous when you're looking at them. The distances between the centre-halves, the amount of ground that's left between them. Obviously, I don't doubt they're not going to really do this against Arsenal, but they're going to play a lot lesser teams who they have to go on the front foot on against Arsenal. And Chudor's often spoke about how much he wants to attack and how much he likes to excite the fans. And I've got some quotes here that I've actually done a bit of research on. So I want courageous and intensive football, not only uniquely based on the defence. I want people who come to the stadium to be entertained, not disappointed. And that was a response to a question that was all about his attacking and tactical principles. So he is more focused on the entertainment side of it than he is in terms of boring the life and getting the points. However, this is a manager over time who has become this saviour of clubs who have gone into these danger moments. And Spurs are currently, as we've said on the channel, they're in crisis. They are in crisis and they need to get points now, and they need to move them far away from the relegation spots, and more importantly, see how far they can go into the Champions League knockout stages. If you're enjoying the video and want more tactical analysis and podcasts, please press the subscribe button below and hit the bell to enable post notifications. It's very interesting to point on some of the attacking principles and some of the principles he does lay out on the ball. I really wanted to hone in on the central defenders. I also want to talk about how he's used different sorts of midfielders. So in Marseille, he often played a lot more with the ball in the games that I watched. They were a lot more possession-based, a lot slower tempo, and he was coming off a Sampaoli team who was a very slow-based possessions, bit of ball speed, but more in terms of defending with the ball. Now, this changed, especially when he went to Lazio and Juve, who have pretty good attacking players in them pockets. So we're looking at Kenan Yildiz, Luis Alberto, Guendouzi, Ciro Immobile, Kolo Muani, who's obviously at Spurs now. They are players who are great in big spaces. And when I noticed that his teams were sitting a little bit deeper and they were looking to absorb space, and I don't doubt this is more likely going to be what we see against Arsenal, when they do play in this somewhat 5-4-1, they do create that pentagon around the midfield. So if we can imagine that a team is building up against Spurs in this case, and we're just going to move it on into a 3-5-2 because Arsenal will set up in something like this on the ball. So if we could just imagine the ball is with the middle centre half and it's like this, they do look to create this somewhat box around these two in the middle right here. Now, I will go on to speak about this in a little bit of a lower block, but we've got a lot to talk about, so I'm just going to keep going. The timings on the jump when the players are worked out to the side. So if this ball's worked here, then his teams of Lazio, Juve, Marseille, then they look to jump out. Now, something really, really risky in his teams is that they are completely man-to-man oriented. Like, in the deep block, they are man-to-man. I don't really see any zonal principles at all in any of his teams when I've watched them. He may well adapt to what Spurs are currently built on because they desperately need points and there's less room for error in a zonal setup. But for me, when I've watched these teams, they are so heavy on man-to-man situations. The midfield two against the opposition's midfield two, it's very tight. These players, these build-up players, very tight like this. And don't get me wrong, it's not sometimes full-on heavy metal press at all times, but when the timing goes, so the ball goes over there, the timing of jumping a bit later and going, maybe that's different, but it's all man-to-man based. Now, there's a problem for me when his teams go man-to-man in the lower block, and I'm looking at the Arsenal game and I really want to highlight this. So, when a team is 3-2-5 against a deep block, his back line is often flattened out. Now, I've obviously seen this at Manchester United with Ruben Amorim. When these two pocket players drop down the outside, so we can imagine the wing backs are ping backed, when these players come down here to receive the ball in these deeper spaces, Chudor is asking his wide centre halves to completely follow them and step out. Now, luckily, Romero and Van de Ven in the longer term have got great physical skill sets and they are sharp enough off the mark to do this. The problem for me comes when he's asking them to do this if they are just moving a metre off the centre line in terms of when they're in the box. I've got two examples to show you of this, but when someone drops just a metre in front like this and there's a little bit of space around that player, they don't bring this player back to cover the pass into him. They don't negate it from the front. It's all about applying that back pressure and allowing their wide centre halves to jump out of this situation. So I want to show you why this can and maybe will be a problem in the short term against Arsenal. So on your screen right now, I've got a situation from the Roma game for Juve. So right here, we can see, before the ball's played in, we can see Pierre Kalulu already looking to step out onto his man just in front of the edge of the box. So we can see by his body language, this ball is coming into him. He's completely engaged in this man-to-man press. He steps up and then El Shaarawy looks to do a reverse turn on the ball to take Kalulu completely out of that wide right centre half space. So he hooks him over to the other edge of the box. And now if we look at Brian Cristante in this position right here, and I think the ball is being played off Dovbyk, could be wrong, but Brian Cristante has noticed that massive gaping hole between the right wing back and the middle centre half that Kalulu has been taken out of because of this man-to-man. Brian Cristante crashes the box and somehow Juve don't concede from this picture right here. Now, this isn't something that has only been present here or there. Another example in the Coppa Italia right now, but this is for his Lazio team against a Juve team. So we can see that same thing. Right centre half jumps out to match that pocket player against Juve in the orange boots right here. Chiesa looks to run diagonally, number 7 on your screen right now, looks to run diagonally through that space that is now opened up by the right centre half reaching out and jumping out in that man-to-man situation. Again, nice 1-2 layoff, and we've got Adrien Rabiot and both him and Chiesa attacking the same space that has now been opened by this man-to-man jumping out of a low block. And again, Juve getting behind of a Chudor block and somehow, once again, do not score from this situation. Now, the problem is if you're playing a very fluid team in attack, and we're talking about a lot of rotations, and I'm thinking about Arsenal all the time, this North London derby, thinking about where the fullbacks roam into and roam out of. If I'm thinking, if they just take advantage of this, if we just have a pocket player jumping out the line, coming inside, and then there's a fullback arriving into this space against them, that could already be causing problems for Chudor's deep man-to-man orientated block. And I think there's a lot of problems on the back foot that he will probably get used to. But I do think a 5-4-1 is what he usually plays. He doesn't really like to gamble high consistently off the ball like this. His forward 3 players don't necessarily stay that high off the ball. If he wants to go without possession, then he will drop in like this. but most of the time he does like his teams to go full on press. So we can imagine that this is, if it's a fullback, they just match them up. They go man for man across the pitch, they go 4v4 at the back, sometimes they're lopsided, so this player will come here and then we'll shift across like that to go completely man to man. And that is usually what we see from a Chudor side. But he is a very aggressive coach, and I don't want to get stuck in this sort of stigma. What he's doing off the ball is extremely aggressive in moments. Now, I'm not sure at Spurs if he will go for it at all points, but in the teams that I've watched for him, whether it's Juve, Marseille, Lazio, I have seen, for the most part, a very aggressive front-footed press, waiting on the edge of the box for the opposition to play short, and I'm not sure how much of that is going to change. I think he may go to a bit more of a reserved approach in the bigger games at Tottenham, but maybe go for it a little bit more in the smaller games. But just before we wrap up, I will go through what I think, and a lot of people have asked me on Twitter, who do you think will suit this team the most? Because I said in my last piece, I don't know what this squad suits, but there are players who do translate to this style quite well. One of them, I would definitely say the wide centre-halves are going to be key in this. I think Van de Ven and Christian Romero will be key. Both of them on the ball, wide stretches with the centre-halves, but also them man-to-man back pressure, constantly following in and out of the low block. I think they're really two good fits for that, and I think Van de Ven, get ready for him to make them long darting sprints down the outside, and like on the examples we've just shown. I think Paulinho will be good. I also think Conor Gallagher would be good. I do think they mesh up quite well. Like in the Juve games that I watched, they often scored a lot of goals on the break and with these counter-attacks. And when they do crash the box, they like to go with everyone like attacking the box all at once. There's a lot of gambling going on. So when they do run forward, when they attack with five like this on the counter-attack, this is often where they leave this edge of the box space. You can imagine if this is the edge of the box there, this often leaves an edge of the box space for people like, in the past, it's been Locatelli, Thuram, Guendouzi, Vecino, them types of players, these late box crashers of these older teams. I can imagine Paulinho, Sarr, Conor Gallagher matching that quality up quite well, where there's a bit of space left on the edge of the box, and because of the energy to go back and forth very quickly, I do quite like their midfield set up for this. Now, there's a lot of questions, and I'm still a little bit confused with what Tottenham have been doing with their squad building. I don't think Igor Tudor is a bad appointment, I'm not going to lie. I think he's a really good adaptive manager. I think he's proven himself to go into clubs and make it immediately better. I like the way he's talking in his press conference. I like the way his teams play. He's not here for the long term. Every one of his jobs that have gone sour seem to have come in a second season where you're looking for them developments, when you're looking for him to connect with the board and the players. But he talks a lot about harmonising a squad. He talks a lot about togetherness and confidence and belief. I do think he's got a ridiculously tricky game as his first game in the North London derby, but it's almost a free hit in many ways for him. And I'm really looking forward to see what he does, but I don't mind the appointment. I think it's a decent appointment, especially in the short term. I think he's a proven guy who's done it before for many, many different clubs. Obviously, he's coached in the Champions League. He's coached at massive clubs. Juventus, Marseille are massive clubs. So I don't doubt that he will understand the pressure, but I think he's quite a cool guy. He's got a nice demeanour to him. He's a very relaxed person, but who knows? Before we wrap up, I also think Xavi Simons will suit this quite well. I think they play a little bit more fast end-to-end football in many ways. I think he'll lean on that a little bit more at Spurs, just simply because he's got the players to. So yeah, I think Xavi Simons will be quite nice, and obviously he played in a 3-4-3 as one of them narrow pocket players when he was at Leipzig quite a lot, and I think this is his perfect zone here. So I think playing this 3-4-3 where he's got licence to move in and out will be good for him. I think Kolo Muani will be good. I think Solanke will be half decent. But yeah, there's a lot to find out from Igor Tudor, and I did enjoy watching his teams. I think they've got really interesting concepts, and I think they've got some really interesting bits and pieces to his style that reflect quite well to make that jump in the short term to a club like Tottenham. And if you look at what they're doing and the players they've constructed, these physical players who are good at running box to box and pressing high in certain moments. And yeah, I think it's a decent appointment. It's a steady appointment, and I actually wish him well, because he's got such a big job on his hands moving here. And if he does well here, he could become something of a Spurs cult hero and go on to do even better things. So best of luck to him, and let us know how you think Spurs are going to get on under Igor Tudor for the remainder of the season, and how far, more importantly, they'll go in Champions League football with them still being in the knockout rounds of that competition. So if you did enjoy, please don't forget to like, comment and subscribe to the Overlap Breakdown channel for more analysis every week, and thank you.